I posted my first look with this new Sigma Spectrum palette last week, and I had so many people that wanted to see swatches of this palette and also some comparisons. So for this video, I'm going to start by swatching out all the shades in this palette just so you can get a really good idea of what all the shades look like. And then I'm going to be comparing it to some palettes that you guys requested, like the Sigma Ambiance palette, Natasha Denona Golden, Natasha Denona I Need a Warm, and ColourPop Bare Necessities, and Your Golden. And then we'll finish off this video by doing another eye look with the Spectrum palette. So if by the end of this video you decide this palette is for you and you want to add it to your collection, you can use my code ANGELABRIGHT to save some money on Sigma's website. So let's get started by swatching out this entire palette. Starting with Sand Dollar, and this is a light sand matte. Next is Coriander, and this is a soft beige matte that actually looks really close to my skin tone right now, and I do have the slightest bit of a fake tan. Next is Beach Grass, and this is a tawny beige matte. Next we have Camel, and this is a warm yellow brown matte. Last shade for this row is Star Anise, and this is a spiced brown matte. And all of these shades are swatching out really nicely so far. They look nice and smooth. There's no patchiness or anything. I can totally see myself using this entire row of shadows if I just want like a basic brown matte look. I just think this makes such a pretty gradient. Moving on to the next row, this is Papyrus, and this is a soft sepia matte. I like that this shade has a little bit of pink to it. I think that'll be really nice on more kind of cool tone leaning skin. I kind of want to change the order that I'm swatching in these now because I really want to swatch Wallflower next to Papyrus since these shades go really nicely together in the columns as well. So I might be jumping around a little bit, but I'm going to move down here to Wallflower. And they say this is a natural tan matte. I don't know if I would describe this shade as tan, but I am seeing a lot of pink in it. I'm going to go back up here to Mohair, and this shade actually looks pretty unique in the palette. It has like a different undertone than the rest of them, and they're calling this one a muted tan matte. Yeah, the undertone of this shade is kind of interesting where it almost has like a little bit of green to it. I'm gonna go back down here to Buttered Waffles, and this is a baked brown matte. Going back up here to Homemade. This one is a warm amber brown matte, and I used quite a bit of this shade in my first look with this palette. And then going down here to Brickyard, and this one is a reddish brown matte. I feel like these three shades right here are kind of in the same color family where they're all going to be that warmer brown. Next is Macchiato, and this is a cocoa brown matte. That's a really nice kind of deeper brown shade. I like that this one's more neutral. And then we have a Double Espresso, and this is a rich coffee brown matte. I definitely see the richness in this shade, and I would almost say it leans a little bit kind of plummy purple. Then we have a Cornucopia. They say that this one is a wicker brown matte. Another really nice, just deep, rich brown. And then we have the deepest matte shade, which is Peppercorn. And this is a dark, cool brown matte. I mentioned this in my first video with this palette, but I kind of like how all of the shades are brown and how there's no like true black or true white in the palette. Just because having shades like this that are pretty close to black, but not exactly, and then even this shade that's kind of close to white, but again, not exactly white, it's just gonna look a lot softer and just kind of more natural on the eyes. I'm gonna have to swatch the shimmer shades separately because I am out of room, but here are all 15 matte shades swatched out. And I do like the bit of variety that you have with these brown shades. I'd say that these ones lean a little bit more neutral. These go a little bit pink. This one's kind of fun with a little bit of a greenish undertone. And then we have some nice warmer shades, and then these shades to just kind of deepen up your look. Now let's swatch these 5 shimmers. Starting with Dune, and this is a silvery beige metallic. I did try to use this shade as a highlighter shade in my first look, but it was a little bit too deep for that, and I can see that now swatching it out. It does lean a little bit more beige than white, but I think this shade would be gorgeous all over the lid. Next is Tiger's Eye, and this is a tawny copper gold metallic. That is so beautiful too. Next is Spiced Peaches, which I did use in my first look. And this one is a peachy rose gold shimmer. Next is Honeysuckle, and this is a bronzed gold shimmer. I'm kind of doing bigger swatches of these just to take up some space. And then the last one is Clairvoyant. I've never heard of this word before. And they're calling this one just a dark brown shimmer. That one's a little disappointing in the swatch, honestly. I kind of wish it had a little bit more of a base to it. And it almost looks a little bit gray to me than like dark brown. I think with this lash shimmer, you definitely have to put it on top of another shade because I think on its own, I don't know, I wish it had a little bit more depth or just kind of oomph to it. But out of these 5 metallics, I think my most used shades are probably gonna be Dune and Tiger's Eye. I also just noticed too in their shade description, they're calling these 2 shades metallics and these 3 shimmers, and I think I prefer the metallic formula for sure. Let's move on to some comparison swatches, and I'm gonna start with the Sigma Ambiance palette. I had a lot of people in the comments on my first video that were like, wait, if we have the Ambiance palette, do we need Spectrum? So let's figure that out together because I have not compared these 2 palettes side by side yet. Right off the bat, I am seeing kind of some similar shades in here, so let's get to swatching. I'm gonna start with the 2 lightest matte shades. So this is Sand Dollar and this is Days. Okay, so Sand Dollar definitely has a bit more lightness to it, where Days is just a bit more like nude. Let's try these warmer shades. This is Brickyard and Oasis. I'd say that Oasis has a little bit more red to it. I'm not seeing a shade that would be like exact to Daylily, but I think I want to swatch Beach Grass next to it. So this is Beach Grass and Daylily. Yeah, this shade is definitely more of like a golden orange kind of shade. I'm gonna skip this deepest shade for a second and I wanna do Sunspot because I wanna see that next to this kind of more purpley shade. So this is a Double Espresso and Sunspot. Ooh, those 2 are pretty dang close. I'd say they're pretty much exact. I don't think these 2 are gonna be exact, but I wanna swatch these 2 warmer shades. This one is Homemade and Summer Solstice. Yeah, kind of like I expected. Again, this shade has a bit more red to it. Next, I wanna try these 2 kind of more yellowy undertone browns. This is Buttered Waffles. I also just love the name of this shade. And Basque. Those 2 are pretty dang close as well. I don't know, maybe Buttered Waffles is like half a tone deeper. I don't know, I'd say those are almost exact. I'm gonna try these 2 for the deeper browns. So we have a Cornucopia and Enrich. It's hard for me to pinpoint exactly what is different about these 2. I wonder if I can build up this shade. See if I can add a little bit more Cornucopia. It's almost like this one's just a little bit more muted. Making my way downtown, walking fast, making a mess of eyeshadow. Okay, so looking at the matte shades between these 2 palettes, I think the ones in Ambiance just lean a little bit more warm overall. Like I said, these 2 browns have more red in it. This one has more orange in it, where these shades are just a little bit more muted and kind of softer overall. And then looking at the shimmer shades, I don't know if any of these shades are going to be like a super close match, but let me see what I can do. I think I want to try these 2 lighter ones first. Honestly, I don't think they're going to be super close. So this is Dune and Luster. Yeah, pretty big difference there. Let's try these 2 kind of more peachy ones. We have Spiced Peaches and Marigold. Now I wanted to swatch these 2 because they both kind of have a little bit of gold, a little bit of pink, and peachiness to them. They're definitely kind of similar, but I'd say there's a lot more sparkle in the Spiced Peaches. Like I'm just seeing a lot more pink kind of reflect in there. Let's try these 2. We have Tiger's Eye. Oh, so pretty. And Midas. Yeah, Midas has a little bit more gold to it, where Tiger's Eye does pull a little bit more neutral. And then let me see how these 2 kind of deeper browns look. Although I wasn't very impressed with this shade. We have a Clairvoyant. Yeah, see how when I swatch it, like there's really just not a lot of base to this color. And Candlelight. They're not similar, but if I had to pick a shade between these 2, I would definitely pick Candlelight. There's not a shimmer that's close to Honeysuckle, and like even looking at Sunflower, like that one's really yellow. So I think that's kind of it for similar shades between these 2 palettes. So I think the 2 palettes definitely give off a similar kind of vibe, but again, Ambiance just leans warmer overall. I think if you already own Ambiance and you're really happy with this palette, you probably don't need Spectrum. But I think if I had to pick one of these 2 palettes, I'd probably probably pick the Spectrum one just because the shades do lean a little bit more neutral and just kind of overall softer, but they definitely give off similar vibes. Next, let's look at Natasha Denona Golden. Okay, looking at these two palettes side by side, I think they're less similar than I initially thought they might be because the overall shades in Golden do lean more golden, hence the name, where there is just a bit more warmth in Spectrum. But I think there are a few shades that might be kind of comparable. I'm going to start with these two shimmers. I think it's been decided now that Tiger's Eye is my favorite shimmer from the Spectrum palette. I'm excited to see this next to Nubia because Nubia is one of my favorite shimmers from Golden. So Tiger's Eye and Nubia. So Tiger's Eye is definitely a bit deeper than Nubia. Next, I want to do these two kind of lighter shades because like these would be my go-to transition shades from these palettes. We have Beach Grass and Flesh. Yeah, they're super similar, but again, Flesh just has a little bit more of that kind of yellowy goldness to it. I'm kind of going through the Golden palette. I'm not seeing anything similar with those shades. Let's try these two. So this is Camel and Teak. Ooh, those are a pretty good match. Next, I want to try these two browns just because they both kind of have that different undertone to them. So this one is Mohair and Sandstone. Okay, those two are definitely not similar. Doesn't this shade just look so green compared to the rest of these though? It's kind of interesting. I really need to try this Mohair shade on my eyes because I'm so curious as to what it would look like and kind of how it would pull. The rest of the shimmers in Golden are just super gold, nothing like the shimmers in Spectrum. Let's try these two deeper shades. So we have Peppercorn and Log. That one's swatched kind of funny for me, that's okay. In the swatch, they don't look super similar, but like I would use these shades the same type of way for my eye looks, really just to deepen it up or as like a shadow liner. So I think on the eyes, these two shades would probably look really similar. But I think those are the only somewhat similar shades between the two palettes, and really they aren't that similar overall. Again, hence the name, the Golden palette just leans a lot more golden. Let's move on to Natasha Denona I Need a Warm. This is where I think we might see some similarities just because again, Spectrum leans a little bit more warm, and this is the I Need a Warm palette. I'm definitely seeing some comparable shades here, so let's get to swatching. I'm going to start with these two browns. So we have Camel and Soft Spot. Okay, pretty close there. Let's try these two lighter ones. So we have Beach Grass and Mellow. Oh yeah, I think those two shades would look so similar on the eyes. I'm not sure how close these two will be, but let's try them out. So we have Homemade and Ripe. Okay, yeah, not super close. Ripe definitely leans kind of more peachy overall. Let's do these two kind of more medium to deep browns. So we have Macchiato and Vim. Pretty dang similar. For this Fervor shade, I can't decide between Buttered Waffles or Brickyard. I think Buttered Waffles will be closer, so let's try that. Okay, so we have Buttered Waffles and Fervor. Okay, I was completely wrong. Let me try Brickyard next to that. I'm gonna redo that swatch. So this is Brickyard and Fervor. Okay, those two are a bit closer, but I think Fervor almost has, I don't know, a bit more orange to it, but it's definitely closer to Brickyard than it is to Buttered Waffles. Let's try these two deeper shades. So we have Cornucopia and Pep. I think the one from Spectrum is a little bit more neutral leaning. Pep does lean a little bit more warm. Now moving on to shimmers, let's try these two. So we have Dune and Homie. I gotta say, formula wise, I definitely prefer the Homie shade. It just looks a lot brighter to me, has a little bit more of a pop to it. But shade wise, they are kind of similar. I kind of feel like the rest of the shimmers aren't gonna be super close, but I kind of want to see how these two look like next to each other. Although I don't think they're gonna be like that exact. So we have a Honeysuckle and Push. Formula wise, again, I think I gotta give it to Natasha Denona. Like, Natasha Denona really does have some of my favorite shimmer formulas. But yeah, looking at the rest of the shimmer shades, there's nothing like Fancy or Elm, and then even this Phenomena shade is kind of more of a multi-chrome. We have this Dynamism shade that's kind of a brown that has a bit of green in it. There's nothing like that in Spectrum. So I think those are the similar shades between the two palettes. So I think if you already have I Need a Warm, you probably don't need the Spectrum palette, but they're definitely definitely are some differences between the palettes, whereas in this one you're only getting 7 matte shades. In Spectrum you have 15 matte shades. But shimmer wise, I think I'd have to give it to the I Need a Warm palette. I'm sitting here and I'm trying to decide between the two palettes. Like, if I could only keep one of these two palettes in my collection, which one would I keep? This is a very hard decision for me, but if you were to force me to pick between these two palettes, I think I would go with I Need a Warm, just because I really like the variety of the shimmer shades in this palette. And like I said, I think the shimmer shade formula is better in Natasha than it is in the Sigma. But I would love to know your thoughts between these two palettes, because maybe you're someone that's like, no, I want all 15 matte shades, and I totally get that. Now let's compare Spectrum to ColourPop Bare Necessities. Okay, looking at these two side by side, I definitely feel like I see some similarities. Even just like the overall vibe seems very close. I feel like we're gonna have a lot of comparisons between these two, so let's get started. Let's start with these two lightest shades. So we have Sand Dollar and Full Expose. Oh, yep. That's like a dupe right there. There's clearly more shades in the ColourPop one, so I'm gonna kind of go down a Spectrum and see what looks similar. I'm not seeing a shade like Coriander, but let's try these two. So we have Beach Grass and Hustler. Hustler is a little bit brighter, has a little bit more peach in it, while Beach Grass just looks more neutral. I'm not seeing a brown shade that looks like Camel. I was kind of eyeing these two, but these ones are gonna lean a lot more cool. Let's try these two browns. This is Star Anise and Velveteen. I'd say those two are pretty close. And then looking at these two kind of more pinkish leaning nude shades. I was looking at this one from ColourPop, but that's like a lot more mauve almost. I guess I'll swatch these two just to compare. I mean, that's the point of this video. So we have Wallflower and All For You. Yeah, kind of like I expected. I feel like these two shades would look beautiful together in a look, but this one just has, I don't know, even more pink, a little bit more mauviness to it, and just overall more depth. I'm not seeing anything like Mohair. Even looking at these two more warmer shades from Spectrum, like this one, Haute from ColourPop, is gonna be a lot more orange and warm. Let's see how these two warmer shades look. We have Brickyard and Tabloid. Okay, I'd say those two look pretty close. Okay, let's try these two. So we have Macchiato and Crack On. Yeah, I think those two shades would look really similar on the eyes. And then looking at these three kind of deepest shades in Spectrum, I don't know, they're not super close to the ones in Bare Necessities, because in this one you do have a true matte black, where we already know that Peppercorn is not a black. I think the undertones of these two are going to be kind of different, but let's see. So we have a Cornucopia and Act a Fool. Okay, those are actually more similar than I thought they would be. I want to compare these two shimmers. So we have Dune and Silk Teddy. Silk Teddy is a little bit more kind of champagne leaning, while this one does lean a bit more silver. I'm curious to see these two swatched out next to each other. I don't think I've ever swatched the shade from Bare Necessities before. Oh, they won't be that close. So we have a Clairvoyant and Cufflinks. I don't know, I think I was looking at the shimmer in this shade and it kind of looks like the same colors as shimmers as in this one, but clearly this has a pink base to it. But there is a lot of pink reflect in this one. Looking at these last three shimmers, I don't think there's anything too close in Bare Necessities. So those are the shades that I think are similar beside these last two. There definitely are some similar shades between the two palettes, but you're kind of getting something a bit different with Bare Necessities, where clearly you're getting a lot more shadows and you're getting quite a few different undertones in here too. Like, you do have those kind of more pinky, a little bit purpley leaning shades. These shades are really, really warm compared to the ones in Spectrum. And personally, I can get a bit overwhelmed with these ColourPop mega palettes sometimes, just because like there's so many shade options in here, and even the way that this palette is laid out really doesn't make a lot of sense to me in my brain. I much more prefer the layout of Spectrum. But if you're someone that wants a lot of options and you want more variety in a neutral palette, I'd probably go with Bare Necessities. But I think if I had to pick one of these two palettes, I would pick Spectrum. Now the last palette I kind of just want to quickly look at is ColourPop Your Golden. I just wanted to quickly look at these because when I was thinking of of warmer palettes in my collection, I thought of your Golden. Like, you have so much warmth in this palette, but these shades definitely are a lot warmer than the Spectrum ones. Like, these two are warmer shades, but they're definitely more muted compared to the ones in here. And then of course you are getting something different with this palette with like these pops of brighter shades. You have some pops of blue in here. And I just think overall the matte shades in this palette are going to pull more warm and red leaning. So just a quick side by side for you. I'm not going to swatch these two out. Now let's wrap up this video with another close-up eyeshadow tutorial, and I just have to try this shade Mohair and see how it looks on me. All right, let's wrap up this video with a good old Angela Bright close-up eyeshadow tutorial. I'm only going to be doing my one eye today. Okay, like I said earlier, I really just want to see what this Mohair shade looks like because I think the undertone is so unique. So I'm going to take that on my fluffy blending brush. So I have that shadow on the tip of my brush, and I'm going to run this back and forth throughout my crease. Okay, wait, that's actually pulling really neutral, and I think I like how that looks. I'm adding a little bit more towards my outer crease. I know I was saying earlier how it looks like this has a greenish undertone to it. But I actually think that looks really nice. I picked up even more shadow and I'm adding that to the outer part of my lid. So pretty much just like the entire outer half of my eye. Now in the same brush, I'm going to pick up Coriander, and I'm going to place this shade in my inner crease. And I don't really know how much this is going to show up on its own, but I'm kind of using this to also just blend the edges of Mohair, just to make this area a bit smoother. Then I'm taking a little bit more Coriander and using that to blend out these edges. Yeah, these two shades go really nicely together. Now I'm going to switch to a small crease brush with more Mohair on the tip of it, and I'm going to run that across my entire lower lash line. And then again, taking a little bit of Coriander and using that to soften the edges. On that same small crease brush, I'm going to take Sand Dollar, and I'm going to use this just to really brighten this inner part of my lid. I actually really like how that looks, so I'm going to bring a little bit more kind of into my inner corner, just because this is doing a really good job at brightening. Now I'm going to pick up Star Anise on a tiny angled brush, and I'm going to stamp that along the outer part of my top lash line, just to add a little bit of definition. Then I'm going to try to do the tiniest little flick of a wing. Okay, that looks good. I'm also going to add a nude liner to my waterline. This one's by Makeup Forever. Here is what this eye look looks like with just mascara on, and for my mascara I use the e.l.f. Lash and Roll. But of course I have to pop on a half lash, so for my lash today I'm wearing the Bright Lashes, a half lash and flutter. And here's the final eye look. I really like how this look turned out, and I gotta say I'm actually really happy with that Mohair shade. I really didn't know what that shade would look like on the eyes just because of that different undertone, but it really does pull just more neutral on me. I think just what throws me off is that it's placed next to these kind of pinky shades, and then you have these warmer shades around it, so it just makes this undertone look so different to me. But it is beautiful and neutral, and I really like how this all matte eye look turned out. So I hope that was helpful for you to decide on whether or not you want to add this Spectrum palette to your collection. But again, if you do want to shop on Sigma's website, my code ANGELABRIGHT will save you some money. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Thank you so much for watching, and don't forget to like and subscribe.